So I just filmed this whole video just for it not to be in focus. So we're filming it all over again, and hopefully the last one was 30 minutes. So hopefully this is much faster, much sharper and straight to the point. So without further ado, let's get into how to study as a law student. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Praise and I am a graduate from the London School of Economics. I did my undergraduate LLB and I'm currently doing the SQE, the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination and the LLM together. Woo! But today I'm going to be taking you through everything I used and how I studied as a law student, because from first year to third year I learned so many new things which I wish I'd obviously known in first year, but being able to grow generally as a student over the past 3 years to what I was able to do in the third year effectively is why I'm here today, because I don't feel like there was that much when I started law school, and how to study and like the ultimate guide to get you through that. So in today's video I'm going to be taking you through my lecture note taking method as well as my reading method, and then last but not least I'm going to take you through like my main tips that I would recommend in relation to this. Now if you would like a video on like exam revision, do let me know in the comment section, or if you would like a video on like essays, like how to write essays, also let me know and I can do that for you. But let me know in the comments section below, and also make sure to subscribe. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So when it came to how I took my lecture notes, because I actually don't take lecture notes anymore. When it came to how I took my lecture notes, it was the same for all my modules. So what I'm about to show you is what you can apply to all the different modules, but obviously different modules require a certain level of information, which means you might have to alter it depending on what you're studying or what module it is. With my lecture page, it was split into 3 headings. So the first one was overall aim, the second one was notes, and the third one was post-reflection / next step. So within the overall aim section, I would always include basically the key learning objectives for what that lecture is about. Where you would be able to find this is like on the first or second slide of your PowerPoint for your lectures. At LSE, our lecturers would always upload them to Moodle. Like we'd be able to find them online and then download them and look through the lectures. So that is one that you would do. And on that slide, I would basically include everything that was supposed to have learned within that lecture in the overall aim of the lecture. Usually I would do this in a bullet point format, but it really depends. You can do multiple lines, like however you honestly prefer best, as long as you know what that lecture is on, you're sorted. Next up, when it came to lectures, the one thing that some of my friends would do is that they would convert the PowerPoint into a Word document and then just like format it so that it's in the page of like bullet points, notes, etc. You can do this. I personally did not. Now the reason why I never did that was because when it came to lectures, I found that if I had done it like that, I never actually paid attention, because I thought, oh yeah, I've got the notes anyways, like it doesn't really matter. I've got it, so I don't really need to pay attention, which also didn't make sense because I would attend the lectures anyways. But there's no reason to explore that. So pre-attending your lecture, I would go into the PowerPoint and just flick through all the slides, have a skim read over what like you're going to be learning. If there's anything you think like will struggle the concept of understanding, then now's the perfect time to write that down in like your lecture template, so that when it comes to that point in the lecture, you pay attention and like make specific notes tailored to your own personal needs and your own understanding of that section within the lecture, within your notes. Moving onto the actual notes stage, I tried my best to pick out the most important things from the lecture. I still wrote a lot, but I didn't listen to what the lecturer says and just completely write that out as it is. Like, to me, it feels like there was no need to literally just copy and paste everything that the lecturer said, because not everything they say is what you actually need. So how I obviously developed this skill over time in like picking out the most important parts, but it generally referred to like writing out context, background, key legislation, key cases, what the principles of these cases were, but just going through with the lecturer and trying to understand. Also in my lectures, most of them were very willing, where people just put their hand up and ask a question. I was never one of those individuals, but listen to those questions and like put them and add them into your notes. When it came to post notes and next steps, with this, I would usually do this towards like 5 minutes towards the end of the lecture and write out everything that you need to do after this lecture, so in relation to the topic you've just learned. So if it's like readings for that topic, preparation for that class, I would include that in like a little bullet point at the bottom, just so that I know that when I come back to that document for revision, I would know that this links to the readings I did in this week because I have it at the bottom of that page. And hopefully you've done the readings, but it just signposts me all the information that I need for that specific topic, or also it's useful for essays. Also, usually at the end of my lecturer would say like, okay, now you guys should read this. You'll find the information obviously on a document that they send you, but like copy and paste that and just put it into the next steps for your lecture.
So throughout this video, I've constantly tried to say, always do things to make your life easier. So one accessory that has really helped me to do this is the Caesar Fancy S Pro. So this is a webcam / PDF scanner, and the best thing about it is how flexible it is. So you can bend it at different points and get different shots and angles for scanning your work. And I've also been able to use it as a webcam for meeting calls / tutoring. And those are just some of the few examples that you can use it for. The best thing about this is that you can adjust the orientation, exposure and lighting through the knob on the top of the product. And by downloading the Caesar Visualizer app, you're able to view and make scans from this. I've loved using it as a PDF scanner because as a law student, I have purchased quite a few textbooks, and these textbooks are very thick. So on occasions where I don't actually want to carry a thick textbook into campus or to law school, I just scan the pages that I know I'll need and then upload them through using the Caesar Fancy S Pro and annotate them for myself. Honestly, I found this to be a really good way of revising and revision also, because I feel like I'm constantly learning through scanning it, then annotating it, then reading it. It's been such a good way of learning for me and makes everything so accessible. So I would really recommend this. You can purchase your own through the link in my description box, and I would recommend it for any student. Yeah, like I said, you'll find the link in my description box below.
Continuing on with lecture notes, I would also use color coding. Now, color coding I've always done, like highlighting things. I know there's actually like this thing where people are quite against highlighting. Me personally, it really worked for me. I could actually envision or like see what I've highlighted because I've highlighted it. And I did this in 4 or 5 different colors. 4 different colors. So the first color I would have would be for important cases. The second one would be for legislation and key law. The third one would be the lecturer's views, and the fourth one would be critics' views. So throughout my lecture, things would get mentioned. So once that's done, either like 30 minutes after the lecture or during the lecture, I would highlight. Once a key case comes up, I highlight that in one color. Once a key law comes up, I would highlight that in another color. But I would make sure that I highlight all the key laws in the same color and all the key cases in a different color, but the same color for all the key cases. Why I did this was so that when it comes to revision, you literally can just go through the document and note out, like find the cases that are mentioned in that lecture, because you can see them all in one color. Then this thing when it comes to lecture reviews is honestly something not many people do at all, and I think it's really important to pay attention in this respect, because the fact that not many people actually pay attention to this means that you have that extra information and knowledge on that topic. Like, it's a more informed view basically. So during my lecture, I would listen to when the lecturer puts in their own view and perspective on something and write that down, and I would put that down in another color, like actually change the color of the font to know that this is my lecturer's view and see the extent to which I agree to it. And last but not least, critics' views. So critics' views were also mentioned in my lecture, where they would talk about something else in relation to that topic. So it would discuss whether or not like this critic agreed with the main topic that we're talking about and whether or not that was the case. I do this all because of when it comes to exams and revision. Constantly throughout studying as a law student, I always thought, what can I do to make it easier for myself tomorrow? And these were the main tips that essentially allowed me to be not stress-free but stress-less than I would have been if I hadn't. Next up, we are going to move on to my readings, which is quite similar to how I would take my lecture note-taking methods, but I would create a table, which I will actually link these like templates for you guys down below, which you can use. But when it came to my readings, I would structure this once again as a table. So I would have on the left hand side of the box, I'd put like the heading or the name of the author and the name of their title, and then I would have 4 key headings within the table. Yeah, so the first one would be overview, the second one would be notes, the third one would be criticisms, and the fourth one would be evaluation. So in the overview, you'll find this information in the abstract, and the abstract to me is honestly one of the most important things that you can look at when you're doing your readings. If it doesn't have that, usually in the introduction it will still lay out what the person is going to argue, and you should take that information, pick it out, and use those as the key headings for when you're writing your notes. For example, I can't think of a topic, but I did family law last year. So if we were talking about like adoption, and this person argues that like in this I speak about A, B, C, and D, I would take A, make that a heading, B, make that another heading, C another heading, and D another heading, like, and so on and so forth. And then when I was going through my notes, I would skim read. If you don't have time, then skim read. If you do have time, then read properly. But like if I was doing lots of readings, I would skim read, go like see what information applies under that heading, so that you have really structured notes by the end of you completing a reading. When it came to criticisms, often you would find that academics or authors criticize like maybe a certain law or talk about their opinion on a certain topic. To me, that's important information that you should be writing down, because it provides an actual analysis and evaluation on what they think of this topic. In addition to that, I would try and include, like, if they mention people who disagree with them, write those names down and highlight the argument that that person had made in relation to this topic. Last but not least, we're on evaluation. Evaluation is really, I would put my own personal perspective on what I think of the topic, what I think on the arguments that have been made or argued, how strong I think those arguments are overall, and also whether like I agree with the author, quite frankly. And I'd also note down any other readings I've done that actually relate to the reading that I've just read, and how those arguments are similar made by a different author. So that is how I do my readings. My 3 main tips when it comes to readings is, first of all, focus on the core readings, and then look at doing the extra readings when it comes to reading week, exam season. But if you do have time, you know, dabble in a little extra reading, but make sure you get your core readings done first and foremost, because when it comes to classes, those were the ones we actually did discuss, and it was just super awkward if I hadn't done them, and it's like I'm just praying that they don't ask me a question. So focus on the core readings. I would also recommend creating a reading tracker at the beginning of term or in the middle of term, or like when you have time. So how I would structure it is, as an example on the screen here, I would create like a chart and then put the reading title in one page, and then once I've completed a reading, I would just tick it off. I did this so that when it came to the end of the year and I was trying to look at like the readings I've done, notes from them, or also trying to do further readings for specific modules, I didn't have to read over the same one because I know I've already done it. You don't actually need to make a chart or a table. You could simply just put all the readings that you are supposed to do in a Word document and highlight them within that same document once you've completed it. Another thing I would say is that during exam season, you do have the opportunity to like pick and choose and do further readings. So if you are stressed, I understand, like it's an overwhelming amount. When I started, I really just couldn't believe like who is doing all that, but eventually like you figure it out. So just prioritize the core ones, and readings do take a while. I would honestly allocate like a certain, like I would time block like a chunk of time just to do a reading for one module in a day, because I knew it would take me that long. Go through it and just try your best to make sure you have structured notes as possible in similar format that I've showed you, so that in the long run you can go back to those notes and actually have useful and helpful notes. My last major tips to like stand out as a law student, but really just for yourself, like personal motivation, the 3 main tips that I would have is, firstly, use footnotes when you're doing readings. So I mean this, when you're doing a reading from an author or an academic, look at who they're footnoting or citing in their work, and then go to those footnotes and use those as like further support for an argument if you're struggling to find more people who agree to that. Or also the footnotes are just really helpful in like signposting you to further discussion on a certain argument. I honestly found it so helpful when I was doing my dissertation, and I read one and it led me to another and led me to another. If you're ever struggling, use footnotes. I would say when it comes to essays though, first and foremost, make sure that you're using the core readings and you're mentioning those in your essays first, then move on to doing further readings. I would recommend always doing further readings though, even if it's just one or two. Like later on when it comes to an essay, use those further readings, because remember, not everyone does those, so it's better if you do, and then you can like bump up a mark. And then with those, I would also say go on websites such as JSTOR, LexisNexis, Westlaw, Google Scholar. Sometimes I actually found Google Scholar quite helpful to like find more information about things like related to that module. I really found those really helpful. And also when you're doing readings, try your best, if it comes to you doing further reading, try your best to just pick authors who have contrasting views as opposed to the ones who have similar views. You want to do this so that you can find authors and you include them in your essays, and if you have one who argues for and one who argues against, you have overall a better and more well-balanced argument. At the end of the day, do make sure that you personally come down to one side within that same essay. This is not an essay writing video. Doing readings with authors from different views and critics from different views was just really important, because you don't want everyone arguing the same thing, then you don't really have strong arguments at the end of the day. So those are overall my main tips in relation to lectures and readings. My final 2 tips I would say is just try, I've said this in another video, just try and be a week ahead of work. So do your readings for the next week, the week before. You're not stressing as much, you're less like likely to fall behind in workload if you're just a week ahead. And I would do this, like if you are already behind, then use like a reading week or holiday to get ahead of that. And secondly, use your professors. They're there for a reason. I know some people don't like it, but eventually you'll realize, like, if you're struggling with a concept, there's no point trying to fight with yourself. If you've already tried to understand it and you just can't, of course I would recommend going to a lecturer or like academic advisor or like your teacher, booking an office hour with them just to ask them questions about something and help them help you to understand it. Yeah. So that has been everything for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you would like to see any other videos from me, please do comment them down below, especially whether you would want like an essay, an exam revision one. Do let me know in the comment section down below. But I really hope you guys found this useful. If you do have any questions, make sure to comment them down in the comment section also. But for now, it's been your girl Praise. Make sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. And I will see you next week with another video. Goodbye.
Go, 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 shorty. It's your birthday. We gon' party like it's your birthday. We gon' sip.